It is time now for Back Pages tonight here on Sky Sports News, bringing you a first look at the sports stories in the morning's newspapers. And joining us tonight, Jonathan Liew from The Guardian, The Mirror's chief football writer John Cross. Welcome along to you both. We'll hear from you shortly. Let's quickly run you through the Back Pages as we have them this Thursday evening. Back of the Telegraph looks like this. Erik ten Hag there, pictured in training with Manchester United, but United not ready for the season. Ten Hag concerned at injuries and a disjointed summer. And Bruno Fernandes has just signed that new contract, set to be false nine in that opening game, the Friday night football against Fulham. That page of the Times goes with pictures of Matthias de Ligt and also Marcus Rashford there. De Ligt, one of the new recruits. Ten Hag, we are not ready for Fulham, again, is the headline there. But also stories on the right about Calvin Phillips, set for loan with Ipswich, and Spurs suspending Yves Bissouma for their opener at Leicester on Monday. That page of The Sun looks like this. Ready, set, no, is the headline there. And Erik ten Hag with Josh Zirkzee, who is another of their summer signings. First game has come too soon. And then a little story there on the left, rapid ref U-turn on fave clubs. We'll be discussing that one a bit later on in the show. Back page of The Guardian has Sonia Bonpastor pictured. She checks in at Chelsea with an aim to build on Hayes' legacy. I'm competitive and a really bad loser, she says. It'll be fascinating to see how she adapts to the Women's Super League, which, of course, is now in a new ownership structure. And, well, a slightly different take here in The Guardian. United's belief emboldened Ten Hag sets his sights on dethroning City. And, yes, the story there on Yves Bissouma on the right-hand side. To the Mirror. 10 Cup is the headline. Erik says United can grab Pep's title. We've got second best trophy record. So a bit of a split in terms of how the papers are dealing with Erik ten Hag. Yes, Erik ten Hag insists Manchester United have the players to fight for the Premier League title as they prepare to kick off the new season. Also, Calvin Phillips there at the top, Yves Bissouma there on the right. Back page of the Express looks like this. Erik aims for the top. Again, picturing the Manchester United manager ahead of the Friday night football, which kicks off the new Premier League season. Carsley on a mission to win trophy for England. Yes, Lee Carsley has may bring England the next step and seen the tournament his major objective. Yes, also Calvin takes a tractor ride is part of the stories on the back page of The Star. Let's have a look at that now. Yes, again, Calvin Phillips had been at West Ham on loan from Manchester City. Didn't quite work out there, but may it be better for him under Kieran McKenna, with Ipswich returning to the Premier League after a good 2 decades away. Bissouma's blown out, as we mentioned before, with Yves Bissouma suspended the Spurs for the Leicester game. 10-1 shot, tucked within our grasp, says United boss. And finally, back page of the Eye looks like this. Refs' allegiances will not be made public after all. And of course, yes, it is, as a lot of the papers are saying, the big build-up, and now we have the new Premier League season upon us. So looking very, very excited for that, and I'm sure that we'll get a sense of that with our guests tonight as well. Yeah, we'll be hearing from John Cross and Jonathan Liew very, very shortly, and we will be leading with Erik ten Hag. As you've seen, dominating the back pages, his comments. Let's hear right now from the Manchester United manager.
We won also 2 trophies, so that gives us belief that we are capable of winning. And with the 2 trophies, we won more as any other club apart from City in the UK. So yeah, we are confident. We have a good team, we have a good squad. We have to be more consistent, and we want to win in every competition we are taking part of, and yeah, definitely also in the Premier League.
Okay, right. So let's hear then from Jonathan and John. Interesting, isn't it, from Erik ten Hag? On the one hand, the papers saying, he's saying he's not ready for Fulham, but on the other hand, he's talking up already his achievements with Manchester United and saying, well, OK, we've won the 2 cups, but we reckon that we can win the Premier League title. We can dethrone Manchester City. How do you read this one, John, on the eve of the Premier League season?
Well, I guess, David, it's whether you want to take a positive view or a negative view. I should trumpet my own papers taking the positive, really. And look, Erik ten Hag here is saying, isn't he, on the one hand, saying that basically we've won as many trophies or more trophies than anyone else. During City's last 2 title wins. So we are up there, second best, second most successful team behind City. And so therefore stands to reason, does it, that basically they can challenge City really for the title. I'm not sure too many, even the most, sort of kind of biased United fan would really think they could topple City this term today. I do think I like this business they've done. I like the signings they've done. So I'm sure that they can close the gap. And sort of obviously, I think they'll be aiming for top four. And so, you could take his view quite positive. But on the flip side, he's also admitting, though, that his team is not quite ready. And, I mean, I have to say, if I'm a fan, look, I think he's sort of trying to say, isn't he, that we've had injuries, we've had setbacks. It's not been a sort of an ideal pre-season. He's making the point that that's the case for many teams. And so he's trying to give it a little bit of context of it. But it would worry me as a fan just to sort of say that whether the manager is laying the sort of the foundations just to be realistic for that first game of the season at Old Trafford against Fulham. So I think it's mixed messages there for Ten Hag. He's really got to have a good season, particularly after, sort of the board and the club have really backed him in the summer, haven't they, in every sense.
And the last time that the Fulham were at Old Trafford, it was in February, and they won courtesy of Alex Iwobi very, very late on after Harry Maguire had got an equaliser for Manchester United. Is he managing expectations here? Do you see it just simply as that, Jonathan? He's just trying to take the pressure off a little bit because of the significant overhaul and the change this summer and the new signings?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the full context of what he said, I read the transcript of what Ten Hag is meant to have said in the press conference this afternoon, and what he's basically saying is that they are not the finished article. They're not 100%, he says. And if you set it in context, he's talking about they have two new defensive signings, De Ligt and Mazraoui, who have basically been signed in the last week and are just about slotting into the squad. They've had players at the Euros, they've had players at the Copa America, they've had a truncated pre-season and a kind of a different members of the squad coming back to first team training at different periods of time at different intervals, and so having that disjointedness. So it's just a bare statement of fact to say that they are not going to be at 100% yet. I mean, I think where the misunderstanding may have come in is that in Dutch, ready is klaar. The word klaar meaning ready. It also has the sense of meaning finished or done. I think there was an incident about 7 or 8 years ago where Louis van Gaal was saying that Marcus Rashford was not ready for the first team, and people got all up in arms about this. But in Dutch, you would use that word klaar as in meaning he's not 100%. He's not the finished article yet. Does this matter? I don't know. Ten Hag's English is clearly good enough to avoid these kind of misunderstandings, to avoid these kind of ambiguities. But I also think that's a context that if you read, the fullness of what he says, it actually becomes quite clear. So I think while Ten Hag, has a duty to choose his words with the utmost care, I think we in the media also have a responsibility to not sort of blow them out of proportion and twist them and try and make a headline out of them where one necessarily doesn't belong.
Yeah, and it is that little difference there, that semantic difference, as you say, the translation. But it seems like many papers have gone with this phrase, not ready. And you can understand that actually defensively, because of what's happened to Lenny Yoro, because of Luke Shaw, because of Tyrell Malacia as well, John, that still appears to be where United must have the most concern. Would you agree?
Yeah, I would, absolutely. I think also De Ligt has come in, isn't he? And I think he can be an absolute super signing for United. He's got so much potential. But of course, the point that the Ten Hag is making with his not ready comments is saying that someone like De Ligt, hasn't been with the squad that long, hasn't sort of almost fully integrated. And therefore, I do think United are going to take a little bit of time to gel, I feel. And I think that's probably, I think United fans maybe have to be realistic about the start. And I know that's the last thing they want to hear because it was, it finished badly for United in the last third of the season last year, didn't it, really? And I think they probably do want a sort of a different take on it. As I say, I do really like the business that they've done. I think they've, bought well, and Xerxes, we're going to sort of kind of see him, sort of blended in over the first few weeks, because he's another that's not quite ready, hasn't done that much with the team. So I see the point that he's making, and I do think defensively as well, that's something that they've just got to steady, because Lenny Yoro, again, that signing should be one that gets everyone excited, and he's just had rotten luck. And if I'm a United fan, I'm thinking, wow, surely this injury curse isn't going to bite again, really. But I do think defensively it is a concern going into the season. So I do think Ten Hag has probably been quite realistic in his assessment of where the squad is.
Jonathan, when you look at Matthias de Ligt particularly, Ajax, Juve, Bayern Munich, he's only just turned 25. He's got actually quite a lot of big game experience, big club experience for someone who's just into their mid-20s. How do you think he is likely to adapt to the Premier League? Because he's already had to adapt to quite a lot so far in 3 different leagues.
Yeah, and I think the key element of his development, I think people are still remembering the Ajax de Ligt. That side that got through to the Champions League semi-final. I think he was about 19 or 20 when he broke through into that team. He's had to adapt to Serie A, which a lot of defenders say is the toughest place. It's basically the Oxford University of learning how to defend at an elite level. And I interviewed him when he was at Juventus, and he was saying that at Ajax the mentality is totally different. What you have to learn at Juventus is basically doing the dirty work, actually relishing the physical stuff. And obviously at Bayern, he performed very well without ever really shaking off those injuries that interrupted quite a lot of his time there. So I think if he can handle, if his conditioning is right, if he can get up to speed with literally the pace and the conditioning of the game, I think he actually has the skill set to succeed quite quickly, because he's not just like a fancy Dan passing defender that you might expect from the Ajax school. He is a proper old school defender as well, who can mix it physically, and I think he will be an asset to that club.
John, where do you see United this season? Because, as you say, you like the business that they've done. Jamie Carragher thinks that, especially if they continue to struggle at home like they did last season, and, Ten Hag under pressure, he could be gone before Christmas. Gary Neville seems a little bit more hopeful. Where do you see them, let's say, needing to be this season?
Oh, top 4, I think. I think Ten Hag, really, the pressure will be on him, I think, to deliver a Champions League place. And look, the board have backed him, haven't they? They're basically, it took a long time, that review, and it felt painful at times for Ten Hag, but I think they've backed him as their manager. They've given him their faith and support. They've backed him in the transfer market with decent signings, good business, sort of a reshuffle behind the scenes. We shouldn't forget that. There's sort of kind of, there's been changes in the coaching setup, changes in the medical setup. So they really sort of kind of said we're going to give you every chance to succeed. I don't think that they're going to sort of panic early on. They're obviously, because of Gareth Southgate's departure, and he did such a great job with England, in my view, that he could still be available, and sort of, I'm sure that when Ten Hag faces difficult moments, that spectre will loom large because of his links, with the United hierarchy. But I think United will stick with Ten Hag and give him the best opportunity. But I really feel that actually the barometer of success is a top 4 finish for United. I think that's the sort of standard that Ten Hag will be judged by, I think.
Spent around £150 million this summer. There may still be some moves. Jonathan, briefly, where do you think United are going to be, when it comes to that sort of shake-up towards the end of the season, and where do you think they need to be?
Yeah, I mean, clearly the reorganisation and has taken place. They have a huge amount of talent in most positions. I think the midfield is still a big worry for them. I think they have everything. It'd probably be top 5 required to finish in the Champions League next season with the extra places. Whether that would be enough to save Ten Hag or to satisfy the fans, I don't know. But I do think they have the minerals to get into the Champions League next season.
OK. Gents, we will take a break there, and when we come back in a couple of minutes, we'll look at more of the back pages, including a story on the back page of the Eye, which is about refs' allegiances, which, well, actually won't be disclosed or made public after all that, and some other transfer news involving Calvin Phillips and situation that probably Ange Postecoglou didn't really want to get so early in the season, with Yves Bissouma suspended by his own club for the opening game at Leicester. Stay with us. This is Back Pages Tonight. You are watching Back Pages Tonight. Welcome back to you at home. Welcome back to Jonathan Liew from The Guardian and the Mirror's chief football writer, John Cross. OK, so we kick off with Manchester United against Fulham, and the first match round concludes with Leicester against Spurs on the Monday Night Football at the King Power Stadium. But Yves Bissouma will not be involved. John, he's been suspended by Spurs for this opening game after footage emerged of him inhaling laughing gas, which is illegal. So, I mean, it seems like Ange Postecoglou in his news conference was pretty straight down the line with this one, and said, not only is this what we need to do, there need to be sanctions, but also he needs to earn our trust back. But really not ideal preparations for the start of the season if you're a Spurs fan.
Definitely not ideal preparations, particularly as Bissouma, I think, has been good in pre-season. And I think that, this was the season that really Spurs would expect a lot from him. He's a hell of a player, but I really applaud Spurs for taking this strong stance. I think it's a really good, viewpoint to take. I liked what sort of Ange Postecoglou said about it as well. It's something that I think, shows a really responsible task. Look, players, whether they like it or not, and they have to put up with it. I know some disagree with it, but are role models. And basically, this was posted. He posted it on social media after sort of a friendly on Saturday. And what example does that set for young fans? As you rightly say, David, it was, classed as, sort of criminalised last November, wasn't it? And made a sort of a Class C drug. The side effects are, can be really devastating. And look, you have to take a stance on it. Going back sort of kind of 3 or 4 years, a lot of players have actually been sort of outed and kind of posted stupid, idiotic pictures of themselves doing this. And it is obviously quite a trendy drug, and, players are getting into it. And look, since it's become illegal and since it's criminalised, I do think Spurs have done the right thing, bearing in mind that development in sort of the way that the sort of laughing gas nitrous oxide has been treated, subsequently. So I do applaud them. They put basically, the behaviour and morals first, even at the expense potentially of the team. And I think that's the right way to go. That's the right standard to set. So I actually think they've done a good thing here. Ange
Postecoglou, Jonathan, also mentioned about the ability to rehabilitate, if you like, and the importance of support and education for the player. I mean, that's clearly, he doesn't just want to punish. He wants to bring Yves Bissouma back into this squad once he's earned his trust again.
Yeah, I don't disagree with any of that. I do wonder why Postecoglou felt the need to do this all in public. If I'm Bissouma watching that, and I'm not defending what he did, and I'm certainly, I think Tottenham have the right to take whatever action they see fit internally. But I think if you're a player and you're watching that press conference and you want the manager to have your back, and instead you see him go on for 2 or 3 minutes on some sermon about how it's really disappointing, he's let the fans down, he's let this team, there's been big apology, and basically airing all this kind of dirty laundry in public. But it lets Ange look like a tough guy. So I wonder if that the question was obviously going to be put to him. You could dismiss that in 4 words, saying it's being dealt with internally. It's an internal matter, right? And that's it. Instead, he has to go on. He has to make a story of it. And I think it's worth examining why he would have wanted to do that.
Let's move on and talk about refs and which teams they support, which was going to be made public. But now it's not going to be, it appears. John, this was perhaps a little bit of a misinterpretation of Howard Webb, who's the referee's chief, and he's the chief refereeing officer for PGMOL, Professional Game Match Officials Limited. Is it significant, do you think, that this is now being shielded rather than opened up? What's your read on it?
Well, the stories, make it clear that it was their intention. I think Howard Webb spoke to the media today, and basically it was the original intention, the stories say, basically including that on the back of the eye, to originally reveal it You know, a lot of people sort of kind of take random guesses, sort of who they might support, and kind of whether that feeds into kind of that decision that goes against their team. Frankly, I find it embarrassing. I really do. I think it's absolutely pathetic on the clubs to make a thing of a referee's allegiances. You are questioning their professionalism, and they are professionals. I think that basically, what are we going to say next? What, you know, because, I don't know, this player supports this team, then all of a sudden he misses or scores for his team just because he has an allegiance with you know, for who he plays against or who he plays with. Honestly, it's a joke. We need to get back to a bit of respect for the officials. And honestly, revealing it, I think they've ultimately, however it's come about, they've ultimately done the right thing, in my view, by not revealing it. Because honestly, referees are under enough pressure, in my view, by stupid clubs making stupid club statements and, you know, really sort of kind of putting them under the microscope. And honestly, I think they've come to the right decision, and ultimately they've done the right thing. And honestly, stop going on about the referees' allegiances. It's pathetic.
Do you agree with John's sentiments there, Jonathan, and also that the right decision ultimately was made, the U-turn was a good thing in the end?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't need to know who Chris Kavanagh supports in order to enjoy my Premier League football. It doesn't, that information doesn't enhance my enjoyment of football one bit. I think the major mistake that's been made here is you know, the Premier League and PGMLO thinking that as long as they explain this better, tweak it a bit, you know, add new people, you know, explain things on Twitter, have more information to the stadium, more information given to that's going to make this whole thing go away. And it's not. What fans want is for this technology to be rolled back and ultimately abolished. But I think, you know, it's an industry now, and it can only ever kind of become more complex.
Yeah, okay. We don't quite have enough time to get into Calvin Phillips, sadly, because we've only got a minute left on the show. But clearly, this is something, and there's going to be such scrutiny on referees. There's going to be such scrutiny on VAR. We know that these issues are going to continue to rear their heads, and we'll continue to get your opinions over the course of the season. So, Jonathan and John, thank you very much indeed. By the way, if you are interested, the Calvin Phillips story is that he's set to join Ipswich Town for the new season from Manchester City, having been at West Ham last season, in an attempt to reignite his career with the Premier League New Boys. Thank you to Jonathan. Thank you to John. And